adding two negatives. I have -2 plus -3. And just a note to look to see that the proper notation when you're adding a negative is that you put that second number in parentheses. It separates it out so that you know that's a separate part of the problem. Okay? And especially when you start writing a lot, if you just kind of put like this, what does that look like? -2 plus 3, right? Is there anything that shows me that that is a -3? No. All right, so it helps to keep it uniform. All right, off to the side. So how can I model -2 with my integer chips? How can I model this? Pass the ball.
Oh, me? Yeah.
Oh, messed up my 2 red ones.
2 red. And I'll go ahead and draw that. Whoops. 2 red. Okay. And then I'm going to add what with my integer chips? What am I going to add?
Three to Lucas. Oh, I thought you were 2.
I did, but that wasn't.
-3 or 3.
3 reds. Okay. And I'm going to draw that. 3 reds. How many reds do I have altogether? Raise your hand and wait for the ball, please. How many reds do I have altogether? 5. And the reds are negative. So when I have a negative and then I add more negatives, my answer stays negative. Does that make sense? You have negatives, you're just adding more negatives to it. Does it make sense that it would ever become positive anywhere in there?
No.
No, I'm not adding any positive things at all. I'm adding all negatives. Okay. Questions on the positives, negatives before we go? Yes.
With like the negatives in the parentheses, if you're adding like -2 plus 5, do you have to put the 5 in the
That's not, no. And that's not too negative, but we'll get to that in a second. Okay. Example 3. Adding different signs. So that means I'm going to have one positive, one negative. Well, I'm going to have one number that's positive and another one that's negative. So I have +4 plus -3. If a positive plus a positive is a positive, and a negative plus a negative is a negative, what's a positive plus a negative? What's a positive plus a negative? Throw the ball.
Subtraction.
I'm not taking anything away. I'm adding things to this. I'm not taking anything away. I can see why you think that. And that's a very common misconception. And I think still to this day, I think a lot of adults think negative means subtraction.
It could be either.
Why?
It could depend on how high, what number it could be.
Okay. So Ryan thinks it depends, depending on how high the number is. Does anybody agree, disagree, construct viable arguments?
I agree with Ryan because if it was like a -24 and like a +2, then it would obviously be a negative.
Obviously. Why obviously?
Because if you're, oh wait,
Don't backtrack. I'm just saying why obviously.
no, because it's a much higher number than.
A higher number. Negative is
Or
definitely
a much
lower than
lower number then the positive, and then it's confusing.
I know.
It'll be
Stop tapping.
it'll be it'll be positive.
This one will be positive, or all positives plus negatives would be positive?
Oh no, all positives plus negative would be
Neither?
It would be neither. So they're all going to be 0?
You're close there now.
Okay. I think it's going to be negative.
Always?
Yeah.
Is this one going to be negative?
Yes.
Why?
Because it says
Stop playing with the chips. Because it says, I'm sorry.
Because it says that you're adding, but if it's negative, kind of subtract.
I'm not subtracting. I have 4. I have a positive 4. Okay. Everybody agree that I have a positive 4 here.
Yes. Oh, because you're taking away from it.
Hold on. I'm not really taking away. And this is a common misconception. So I have a positive 4, and then I'm going to add how many reds?
4. I mean 3.
I have 3.
I'm adding 3 reds. Okay. Now, where this gets complicated, go ahead and draw your 4 yellows. Your 4 yellows and your 3 reds. Anybody notice anything about these yellows and reds?
It's 1 chip off.
Okay, so the red, there's 1 less red than there is yellow. Okay, what else do you notice?
If you do 4,
Don't compare it to subtraction at all. Here's a hint. There's probably a reason why we learned about
They're like opposite.
Are these opposites?
Yeah.
And the fancy schmancy word for opposites that we use is?
Additive inverse.
Throw the ball, Kayla. Raise your hand. Kayla will throw the ball.
Additive inverse.
They are additive inverses. Isn't that yellow and that red? Those are additive inverses, correct? What do I know about additive inverses when I add them together? They equal 0. So if I took this positive and this negative, it would equal 0. If I took this positive and this negative, it would equal 0. If I took this positive and this negative, it would equal 0. And I'm left with just 1. Okay? This right here, this yellow and red, this is what we call 0 pairs. Okay? It's a pair of numbers that if you add them together, they'll equal 0. So 0 pairs are your additive inverses. Okay? And I can show this on my paper by taking a yellow and a red and canceling them out. Take a yellow and a red and cancel them out. Yellow, red, cancel it out. And I'm left with just 1 positive chip. So 4 plus -3 equals 1. Jack.